Hello everyone, and welcome to East of Mystery. Today's story begins with a car accident. Yep, you heard that right, a car accident that happened over 3,200 years ago. On that day, King Wu Ding of the Shang Dynasty went out chasing wild buffalo with his ministers. Suddenly, the axle of one minister's chariot snapped. The weapons on his cart got tangled with the king's chariot and, bang, the king's cart flipped over. Someone named Ziyang also fell out. Now, Zi was the royal family name, so Ziyang was probably a younger member of the clan. What's really interesting here is the wording on the oracle bone. It says Ziyang also fell out of the chariot. That little word also is basically a hint. The king himself fell out too, but the scribe was being polite and didn't write it directly. Gotta save face for the big boss. The characters are super vivid. You can practically picture the broken axle and the wheel flying off. And yes, all of this comes straight from the oracle bones unearthed at Yinshu. So what are oracle bones? They were tools for divination. Shamans would carve a question into the bone, then apply heat until it cracked. The king would read the cracks to judge good or bad fortune, and later the results were carved back onto the bone for the record. Here's how the accident got recorded. One day, a diviner asked, "Will there be any misfortune in the next 10 days?" The king read the cracks and said, "Uh-oh, something bad is coming." And, sure enough, the very next day, while chasing buffalo, he crashed his chariot. For the Shang people, divination was even more routine than eating. They divined for sacrifices, battles, hunting, rain, harvests, childbirth, illness, even for fishing or eating. And if they ran out of things to ask, they'd just go with, "Will there be a disaster tomorrow?" or "Any disasters in the next 10 days?" Our main character today, King Wu Ding, was the 23rd ruler of the Shang Dynasty. He lived around 1250 to 1192 BCE and reigned for 58 years, the longest reign of any Shang king. The dynasty's capital during his time was Yin, which is why the Shang are often called Yin Shang. Now, let's check out some of the king's more amusing stories. One oracle bone inscription said, "Will there be a report of wheat tomorrow?" Then they found another from the next day with the same question. At first, archaeologists thought wheat report meant some ritual about grain, and they were puzzled. Hadn't they just done it yesterday? Why ask again? Later, more oracle bones cleared it up. The wheat report wasn't about rituals at all. It was literally a tribal chief coming to say, "My lord, the neighbor's wheat is ripe. Shall we go take it?" And yes, the king really did lead his men to collect the wheat. People 3,000 years ago were pretty straightforward. If you got caught, they didn't just take the wheat, they'd take the people too. Similar inscriptions mention livestock reports or hunting reports, which probably meant the same kind of thing. The king could also be indecisive. Once, after capturing some enemy chiefs, he asked the oracle, "Is it okay to sacrifice them?" The result? Great fortune. But he wasn't satisfied. He asked again. "Tomorrow, is it okay?" Great fortune. "Tomorrow night?" Great fortune. "In the place called P, is it okay?" "At the south gate, is it okay?" Now, if you were one of his ancestors answering, would you dare say no? If you said Southgate wasn't good, he'd immediately ask about the North Gate or the ancestral temple or somewhere else until he got a yes. The king was also an avid fisherman. One day he divined, "Is it good to fish today?" The ancestors said, "No." He went anyway and caught nothing. The next day he asked again, "Tomorrow, will I catch fish?" This time he hauled in plenty and proudly showed them off on his way back. But here's the kicker. His fishing minister, a guy named Shi, caught 30,000 fish that same day. The king, embarrassed, ordered him to bring back a sturgeon. Shi delivered 16 sturgeons plus 16 Qiang captives just for good measure. King Wu Ding was also a capable warrior. Once, he and General Qin defeated the Wei tribe. The record says 4 captives, 1,570 heads taken, plus 100 women, horses, chariots, shields, and arrows. The enemy chief was sacrificed to the founding ancestor Tang, the other captives to various kings, and the 100 women were offered to King Zhu Yi. Clearly, in the sacrifice value system, one tribal chief equaled 100 women. How warlike was Wu Ding? One oracle bone notes that on a single day he launched campaigns against 4 different tribes. But when it comes to military power, his wife, Fu Hao, takes the crown. She was basically the war goddess of the Shang dynasty. One inscription records her raising 3,000 militia and leading 10,000 regular troops against the Qiang. That's the largest single military campaign ever recorded in the oracle bones. Even Wu Ding himself never commanded more than 5,000 at once. So, yes, his wife may have been the better general. After Fu Hao passed away, the king missed her deeply. The bones often record, "The king dreamed of Fu Hao." He then asked the oracle if the dream was good or bad. He also dreamed of ghosts, dead kings, even dragons, and every time he'd perform divinations to figure out what it meant and whether sacrifices were needed to ward off misfortune. To the Shang, dreams were a bridge between the human world and the spirit world. The scale of sacrifices was staggering. Inscriptions mention offerings of 100 cattle, 100 jars of wine, and 100 Qiang captives at a time. In one extreme case, 1,000 cattle, 1,000 jars of wine, and 1,000 Qiang. At Yinshu, archaeologists have found over 2,000 sacrifice pits, more than 10,000 human remains. The Qiang people show up in the inscriptions so often they might even outnumber the king himself in mentions. The rituals could be gruesome. Some characters depict splitting bodies, smashing skulls with stones, or cutting victims into pieces. The Shang really were particular about sacrifices. The Qiang were semi-nomadic people from the west, probably from the Tibetan plateau. They played an important role in the Shang's history, and later in the Zhou dynasty and even in Songxing Dui culture. Most of the Shang's major wars were against the Qiang, showing how powerful they were at the time. And it wasn't only slaves or captives being sacrificed. Sometimes nobles were offered too. In prayers for rain or to the river gods, queens or aristocratic women were occasionally used. There's even one inscription where Wu Ding asked, "If it doesn't rain today, and I sacrifice myself tomorrow, will it rain?" Luckily, it rained that night, or else the king would have been the offering. As more oracle bones are deciphered, we're bound to uncover even more fascinating stories like these. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.